The home of the UK government since the year 1510. King Henry VIII, he decided that he no longer wanted to live there, so he moved out and moved to the Palace of Whitehall and left this place as the home of the UK government. Along the right here you can see these green awnings. Standing in front of there are all our MPs, our elected representatives. They're standing in front of the green awnings, which is their bars, tea rooms and cafes. Let's give them a wave, see if we get anything back. There you go. So, there's two parliaments in that building. Now behind us to the right is where the MPs are. They sit on the green benches. Now directly next to us, where this red awning is, that's where the Lords are, and they sit on the red benches. And we keep the MPs and the Lords separate, because if we allow them to mix in Parliament, you get corruption. So by keeping them separate, we've kept corruption out of the UK government, or at least that's meant to be the story. I'll let you decide how successful that's been. So as we turn around, it's the new Palace of Westminster. The old one burnt down. 1834, the Chancellor of the Exchequer decided one night to have a little fire in his office to warm himself up, and he set fire to the whole place, virtually destroyed it. How did we feel about that as Londoners? Were we upset? Did we rush to help? Did we, Ella's like? We all came out to this embankment over here in front of us, Lambeth Embankment, and we all gathered and we cheered and we shouted, "Burn Parliament, burn." And there was that much cheering and shouting that one bloke actually got arrested and spent the night in jail for excessive cheering. That's how upset we were to see our Parliament burn. And then this place was designed by Charles Barry and finished in 1864. So there's three distinctive towers. The tallest one behind us now with the Union flag on the top, that is the Royal Tower. That is the tallest tower on the site, and that's the monarch's entrance. So when the King or the Queen enter Parliament, they have to enter through that side of Parliament. They never ever cross into the House of Commons. The last time the King went into the House of Commons was 1642, and he tried to arrest some of the MPs because they wouldn't put his taxes up. That started off the English Civil War, and 6 years later the King ended up having his head chopped off. King Charles I. So since that day, no monarch has ever been past this central tower into the House of Commons. So this central tower we're coming along to now, that is just a glorified chimney. All of the fireplaces in the Palace of Westminster filter out through that chimney. And then the last one that's coming up on the left there, the one with the big clock on it, I want you to tell me what you think it's called. So on the count of three, I want you to shout out what it is, okay? 1, 2, 3. Close but no cigar. Elizabeth Tower is its name. It gets the nickname Big Ben because of the bell that's in it. When this place was rebuilt, the guy in charge of the works was Sir Benjamin Hall, a very large, round, loud man, massively unpopular with his staff. They didn't like him, so they nicknamed him Big Ben. Then when the bell turned up that sits in the top of the tower and it chimes on the hour, it weighs 13.5 tonne, it's large, round and loud, so they nicknamed the bell Big Ben because of Sir Benjamin Hall. Just as well he weren't called Richard, really, weren't he? But that's probably a different order, I should be saying that one on. So let's go back under Westminster Bridge, see if we get a wave off from up there on the top. There you go, look. Oh. So that's Mary and Sue, pay them £5 an hour, stand there all day waving at you lot. So as we come out of Westminster Bridge, behind us you've got the Elizabeth Tower. It was called the Elizabeth Tower in 2012 because of the Queen's 60 years on the throne. Prior to that it was called the Clock Tower or the St Stephen's Tower. Behind it, in the background, you can see the very tops of Westminster Abbey. And that's what gives that area of London its name. There's been a minster on that site since medieval times, since the 11th century, and it's to the west of London, hence it's called the City of Westminster. That's where all of our state weddings, coronations, funerals, Festival of Remembrance, that all takes place in that place there, Westminster Abbey. So on our right hand side, this is where you boarded, the lastminute.com London Eye. Contractually obliged to mention that a few times because of sponsorship, because it's all over me and I'm wearing the lovely pinks and greys of it. I don't wear this for fun, that's for sure. But yeah, lastminute.com London Eye, or it's been called many things, BA Flyer, Millennium Wheel, London Eye. 1993, a competition was run in the UK to come up with a national landmark to commemorate the year 2000. So that entered the competition, and then it lost. It didn't win. What did win is further down the river. But British Airways, or BA as they're more commonly known, they liked the design of that wheel that much that they decided to fund it as a private venture and paid 75 million quid to have it put along the river so that they could have their name displayed on it as the BA flyer. It proved to be much more successful than they ever thought though, because it only took them 2 years to make their money. That's how quickly it turned around, which they weren't expecting. And if any of you have been on it today, you've probably got a good idea of why it only took 2 years. Because it ain't a fiver, is it? So, we're just about to go under the newest bridges on the Thames here. Hungerford Railway Bridge in the middle, and the Queen Elizabeth bridges either side. These pedestrian bridges were opened in 2002 for the Queen's 50 years on the throne, her Golden Jubilee. And that's why they're called the Elizabeth Bridges. They're built of the same style as the London Eye, and deliberately so that they blend in with the London Eye. So let's see if we can get a wave off of anyone. Hello, hello on the bridge. And then oh, there we go, we're getting one back. And then on the other side is another pedestrian bridge. This railway bridge links Charing Cross Railway Station with the south of England. Charing Cross On our right is the Royal Festival Hall and an area of London known as the South Bank. The single biggest gathering of art and theatre buildings in one place in the entire world. Traces its origins back to the Festival of Britain, which took place in 1951 as a tonic celebration after all the years of the hardship of the Second World War. And that building was opened by the then Princess Elizabeth the year before she came to the throne. So 1951. On your left is something much, much older. This stone obelisk is the oldest thing you will ever see in London. Cleopatra's Needle. It's older than London itself. It's 3,500 years old. It was gifted to us by the Egyptians for our help in defeating Napoleonic forces at the Battle of the Nile in 1798. One of Nelson's 4 famous victories, which are depicted at the bottom of his column. You'll notice that the sphinxes face inwards, but they ain't meant to. They're meant to face outwards to ward off evil spirits. But when the Victorians put that there, no one knew that. So by the time they'd realised, the concrete would set and it was tough. They had to stay as it is. So the only place in the world where the sphinxes will face inwards and not outwards. So we're just going under Waterloo Bridge. This is the river at its widest point, all the way from Tower Bridge, all the way back to its origin at Oxford, about 40 miles behind us. On our right hand side, this concrete carbuncle of a thing with this electronic sign on the top. Britain's ugliest building, this is. Our Royal National Theatre, opened by Charlie Boy in 1976. And he said, when this opened, that it looked like the back end of a nuclear power station and had no right to be along the Royal River. He hated it and slated it. So 2 years after it opened, the competition was run in the UK to identify the nation's ugliest building. And that one, because of what Charlie Boy said about it, and every time that competition is run, it wins. But actually, a little tip for you, if you're in London, you've got a bit of time and you fancy taking a showing, check that place out first. The ticket for the West End, 250 quid.
London's ugliest building.
The cheapest ticket, a tenner.
And it wins every year.
Expensive ticket, 89.
An ugliest competition.
All the plays that are on in the West End have done a stint in there first. You can go on there tonight, go online, buy a ticket, a score, 20 quid, really good seat in the house. They've got the Grapes of Wrath in there, really good theatres actually. Well worth a tip, and certainly better than paying 250 quid in the West End. Sorry? Yeah. It's our National Theatre. There's 3 theatres inside there, and that's why it's as cheap as chips. So coming up on our right hand side is the OXO Tower. You think you might see the word OXO above, which is these little things that I've got in my hand. So these are OXO cubes. Anyone British on the boat will know all about these. This is where we get our famous British cuisine from. We dissolve these little cubes on the top here in hot boiling water and we get our gravy for our Sunday dinners. This is the height of British cuisine, this is as good as it gets. This organisation, OXO, opened this building in 1931. They've been making these things for over 130 years. As soon as they opened this building, they got took to court. Because above it, you can see their brand. The river is a royal highway and no advertising is allowed on the Royal River. So they got took to court under threat of having to demolish their tower and remove their advertising. I had a really clever barrister who argued the case with the judge that no, you don't see our name up there, purely accidental. We just ordered some windows and happened to spell out our name wrong. Nothing to do with us at all. The judge bought it, threw the case out of court. They got to keep their skyline advertising. Some people say that the judge never worked again because he became a laughing stock. I told you there were some bad jokes. So on our left hand side, St Paul's Cathedral, the big dome with the cross on the top of it. That is the second biggest unsupported dome in the world. The only one that's bigger is St Peter's Basilica in Rome. That's the fifth version of St Paul's Cathedral. The fourth burnt down in the Great Fire of London in 1666. We then employed a British architect, very famous architect, Sir Christopher Wren, to design and build its replacement. He designed that to be exactly 365 feet high, because Sir Christopher Wren is a very religious man, and he felt that we should worship every day of the year, not just Christmas and Easter, so he had it built to that height. As we come out of the bridges, you'll notice that there's no tall buildings in front of it. It's absolutely a clear view and it's not obscure. All the tall buildings are further down the river. And that is because there's an ancient law in London and in the UK which dictates that St Paul's Cathedral has to be visible from 8 key points all around the Greater London area, and that's why nothing is built tall in front of it. Now on the top of it, you can see a 60-foot cross. That's what you'd expect to see on a church, the cross. But when Sir Christopher designed that, he wanted to put a 60-foot pineapple on top of that. Because back in the day, pineapples were all the rage. In the Stuart times, if you had a pineapple, you was rich. Because back when that place was built, a pineapple would cost you the equivalent of £5,000 in today's money. People used to go for a walk on a Sunday with a pineapple on their arm up and down the park, showing it off. I got one of them in my pocket. It's no Louis Vuitton or Gucci, you had a pineapple if you was rich. But the church said, no, Christopher, you ain't putting a pineapple on top. It's got to be a cross. But they relented. So if you look, you can see now the two towers before the actual dome. That's the entrance to St Paul's Cathedral, and on the top of there are two 6-foot golden pineapples. Now that you've seen them, you will see pineapples all over London, because at the time when that place was built, this was the richest city and richest country in the world. Now we're going under the Millennium Bridge, or the Wobbly Bridge. Let's give them a wave, see if we get one back, and if we do, they're feeling exceptionally brave. Hello on the bridge. There you go. I'll explain why they're brave on the way back. On our right hand side, this white round building with a thatched roof on top, Shakespeare's Globe. Not the original. This building opened in 1997. The original, which was slightly further back and to the left, opened in 1599. 1970, Sam Wanamaker, famous American film producer, came over to the UK with his daughter and was horrified not to find anything that paid homage to Shakespeare. So him and his daughter set about having this built as a shrine to Shakespeare, and it took 27 years to build. It built exactly the same style and layout and shape as the original. It's the only thatched roof you'll see in London, because they were outlawed after the Great Fire. And there's a play on in there today, and you can tell that because just like in Shakespeare's time, there's a flag flying which tells you there's a play. It's a red flag, so it's a history play. If it was a white flag, it would be a comedy, and if it was a black flag, it would be a tragedy. You can go in there and see a play, £5, that's all it is, a £5. But be prepared to stand for 4 hours, because that's how long it takes. And the only difference between that one and the original is that in Shakespeare's time, if there was a female part, it had to be played by a male, but now, if there's a female part, it was played by a female. Because back in Shakespeare's time, women were not allowed to act. So we're just coming through Southern Bridge. The only bridge in London that are leading is still illuminated by gas lights. So up there, they're powered by gas, not electricity. But much more interesting is this little place on the right-hand side, this little brick building with the red windows, the Anchor Pub. It's been a pub on this site for over 800 years. Shakespeare used to sit in there writing his plays in the 1580s. 1666, Samuel Pepys sat there and watched the Great Fire of London destroy London on the other side. 1755, Samuel Johnson sat in that very pub and wrote the first English dictionary. So if English don't make any sense to you, because you'd have one too many when he was in there, that's for sure. But it's a lovely pub, well worth a visit. You're definitely going to come here yourself at some stage. You can come a little bit, pop in here and have a pint, you'll be well impressed. So coming up on our left-hand side, just coming into view, stone column with a golden top. That is the monument to the Great Fire of London. The fire occurred in 1666. It raged for 4 days and 4 nights and destroyed London on that side of the river. Amazingly, only 6 people were killed during the fire, but it was that severe that 85% of Londoners became homeless overnight. It stands 311 steps high, and you can go up it. I used to go up there when I was a kid for free with my granddad. Now it's £6, so if you fancy it, do it before the weekend because it's going to be a tenner the way it's going. But it's 311 steps high. If you laid it down flat, from the base to the very top of the golden flame on the grill, it would be the exact spot the pudding lane where the fire started. So amazingly, only 6 people died during the Great Fire, but the quirky thing, 7 people died building the monument. More people fell to their deaths building it than actually burned in the fire. So, coming into view, the thing you've all come to see, yeah, the world famous, the iconic, the beautiful, the best, the most photographed bridge in the world, London Bridge, yeah? We're just going up here. This is London Bridge. If you don't believe me, we'll put the name on the side here so you can believe it. This ahead is Tower Bridge, okay? But don't worry if you get it wrong, just like Big Ben, because if you Google London Bridge, it will show you pictures of Tower Bridge. So I'm going to go and stand at the back of the boat so I'm not in your photos. Please remember to stay seated when you're upstairs so that our captain can see where he's going and also everyone else gets a great opportunity for photos. And I'll start to tell you about what we're going to see as we come up into this area. So there's 2 ships here. This World Voyager is a cruise ship that's visiting on the left. The one on the right is the battle cruiser, the Belfast. And these kids have just done it. You can do the kit on the ship, you can stay on there for the night. Great fun. But that's a World War II battle cruiser, and it was built in the very self-same dockyard as the Titanic at Harland and Wharf in Northern Ireland. It was launched on St Patrick's Day, 1938. And it served throughout the Second World War and was a very lucky ship. It fired some of the first shots of the D-Day landings 80 years ago this year in Normandy. It then served throughout the Second World War and then served through the Korean theatre. And then after the Korean War, it came to the end of its service life and was due to be scrapped. So it was going to be scrapped. The British government were asked by the Imperial War Museum if they could buy it off them and turn it into a floating naval museum, which is what's happened to it and why it's there now. And they bought that ship off of the British government and paid £1. And then coming into view up ahead of us is Tower Bridge, the most iconic photographed bridge in the world. Not as old as it looks, opened in 1894. So if I can remind you all, please, especially the hard of hearing, please sit down throughout the duration of the program. If you stand up, he can't see, and you ain't going to just get a seat out, Rich, you're going to be holding on.